Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Sunday. Wanted to jump on right quick. There's a lot of stuff going on in the news world and around the world. But the main thing I want to talk about first and foremost is DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. They are finding lots and lots of money that has been wasted by our federal government, money that you pay in taxes that like I said in previous videos, there was no constitutional right for them to take taxes from us. So they did an amendment and they changed that to where they can levy taxes from us, but it is not law. It has never been a law. It was all voluntary. But now we're finding out that they're stealing a lot of the money, laundering it, sending it to programs that you or I never would have agreed to. And they're talking about giving us a dividend check of $5,000. So I wanted to talk about that. There's probably a lot of people out there that are very pissed off about their tax money being stolen and being sent to all of these different programs or laundered back or to enrich our congressmen and senators, our presidents, different things like that. So I thought I'd read a little clip I was looking into, and this is what it says. Although taxpayers generally lack standing to sue the federal government, they do have standing to sue when the federal government uses its revenue to violate the Establishment Clause. Because the federal government has exceeded its constitutional limitations on taxing and spending. Yes, you did hear that right. The people who are having the money stolen from us, you and I, have the right to sue the federal government for what they are doing. So, is $5,000 in dividend money enough? Or should we all band together to sue and see what happens? Because, the constitutional limitations on taxing and spending. These people have an open checkbook with our tax dollars and have been spending like it's going out of style. So that's the first thing that I wanted to tell you guys about. So we should definitely look into that more. Let me know what your thoughts are on it in the comments. But also, let's talk about the Federal Reserve, because everybody is saying that DOGE was not a voted on entity, that Donald Trump just made it and he can't do that, and so on and so forth, that they want to shut it down because it's unconstitutional and all kinds of reasons. But anybody who opposes DOGE finding all of the fraud and the money laundering and the stealing of our tax dollars has to be in on it. They have to be in on the take, otherwise they wouldn't want to stop them from finding this stuff out. But that being said, with DOGE, which was created long ago by Clinton, Barack Obama used a term DOGE as well because they wanted to cut wasteful spending within the government. So it wasn't created by Donald Trump, but it is being implemented by Donald Trump. Just like you hear people talk about this JSARA and NESARA. That wasn't created by Republicans, and it wasn't created by Donald Trump. It was actually talked about by John F. Kennedy. And we all know what happened to John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy wanted to do away with the elites and the powerhouses who controlled our federal government, and we see what happened to him. So all of these people who are whining and complaining and saying that Donald Trump created all this stuff has been around for a long time. But what I want to talk about right now is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is ran by 7 governors within the United States, but it is not a government entity. It is a private entity. So when Donald Trump said he was going to fire Jerome Powell said, you can't, because I work for a private entity. Now, Congress does elect and vote on the people that are going to be the 7 governors. But realistically, this Federal Reserve was created in 1913. Remember, we talked about the Olympic which was owned by J.P. Morgan, and the Titanic, and there was a little switcheroo of the two boats, and they sank the Olympic with everybody who opposed the Federal Reserve. Went down in 1912, and in 1913 we get the Federal Reserve, which is a privately owned banking establishment that basically holds the banking for the United States. And they control your credit score, the interest rates, the S&P 500. They control what every cent of our money goes to, and what is used for is decided by this Federal Reserve that we did not vote for. That is a private entity. So if they're going to whine and complain about Elon Musk possibly getting our sensitive information, then I think we have every right to whine and complain about the Federal Reserve, because everything surrounding its circumstances is wrong, and how it was created and how it was forced upon us. And now you've got these elites, J.P. Morgan, Chase Bank, Rothschild, Vanguard, BlackRock, who literally own everything you can think of. They have the majority stock in all of it on the stock exchange. And they control all of our money. Anything that we decide to do, our interest rates, all of that stuff. Like I said, they're the ones who gave you the credit score. All of that stuff is done by a private entity. It's pretty interesting. So I was going to read a couple of things here. Founding the Fed started clear back in 1791 when they started discussing it, when they created the first United States Bank and then the second United States Bank. And then they had the National Banking Act of 1863. And you can look all these up and you can read about them. There's a lot to read about. I mean, there's a ton. But I just wanted to get down to, some of these, a couple of these different things here that the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. So the Federal Reserve Act, presented by Congress Carter Glass and Senator Robert L. Owen, incorporated the modifications by Woodrow Wilson and allowed for a regional Federal Reserve System operating under a supervisory board in Washington, D.C. Congress approved the act, and President Wilson signed into law on December 23, 1913, the act provided for the establishment of Federal Reserve banks to furnish an elastic currency to afford means of rediscontinuing commercial paper, to establish a more effective supervision of banking in the United States, and for other purposes. The act provided for a Reserve Bank Organizations Committee that would designate no less than 8 but no more than 12 cities to be Federal Reserve cities, and would then divide the nation into districts, each district to contain one Federal Reserve city. So Woodrow Wilson signed this into law. So I was kind of curious about Woodrow Wilson, and I didn't know much about the guy. So I pulled it up to read about him, and I didn't realize he was such a horrible president. Apparently, a lot of people did not like this man. So we're going to read a little bit about what they say about Woodrow Wilson. So, Thomas Woodrow Wilson, December 28, 1856 to February 3rd, 1924, was the 28th President of the United States, serving from 1913 to 1921. 1913 being when they signed the Federal Reserve into law. He was the only Democrat to serve as the president during the Progressive Era, when Republicans dominated the presidency and legislative branches. As president, Wilson changed the nation's economic policies and led the United States into World War I. Isn't that interesting? What happens when you have the first Federal Reserve, where they're handling all of the money and starting to, take control of all of the wealth, and then they go right to war, World War I. Isn't that interesting? He was leading the architect of the League of Nations, and his stance of foreign policy came to be known as Wilsonism. Born in Stanton, Virginia, Wilson grew up in the Southern United States during the American Civil War and Reconstruction era. After earning a PhD in history and political science from Johns Hopkins University, Wilson taught at several colleges prior to being appointed president at Princeton University, where he emerged as the prominent spokesman for the progressivism in higher education. Wilson served as the governor of New Jersey from 1911 to 1913, during which he broke with party bosses and won the passage of several progressive reforms. In 1912 election, Wilson defeated incumbent Republican Howard Taft and third-party nominee Theodore Roosevelt, becoming the first Southerner to win the presidency since 1848 election. During his first year as president, Wilson authorized the widespread imposition of segregation inside the federal bureaucracy, and his opposition to women's suffrage drew protest. His first term was largely devoted to pursuing passage of his progressive New Freedom domestic agenda. His first major priority was the Revenue Act of 1913, which began the modern income tax. Go figure, they have a Federal Reserve, and now they have a federal income tax. They control all the wealth. They give you taxes. Interesting. First World War and income taxes right after they created the Federal Reserve. Who would have known, huh? It's crazy. The Federal Reserve Act, which was created, the Federal Reserve System, at the outbreak of World War I. In 1914, the U.S. declared neutrality as Wilson tried to negotiate peace between the Allied and Central Powers. So the reason that I'm bringing this up is because there are no coincidences. They knew exactly what they were doing when they created the Federal Reserve, and that they would have the power, once again, over the American people. The Federal Reserve is a private entity, and somehow it controls all of the money in the world. Controls like I said, the S&P 500 controls your tax money that comes out, goes to where it's going, your credit score, your interest rates, everything. They control it all, but yet it's a private entity. So I think we should look into that, and we also should look into the fact that the federal government stealing our money and using it misappropriately should definitely be looked into, because they can be sued. So know that you can sue the federal government for what they are doing with your tax dollars. So I just wanted to share that. There is so much going on out there. They just had to remove the Resolute desk out of Trump's office because they found bugs that were listening in on all of his conversations. Crazy stuff going on. The Federal Reserve, or not the Federal Reserve, Fort Knox is about ready to have the Doge team and Donald Trump show up there with live cameras to go through. It hasn't been audited in 50 years, so we just believe that there's gold in there, which there's probably not. There's probably a lot of dust and gold certificates that China left us. Kind of like the Willy Wonka's golden ticket is what we'll find in there. But widespread stealing of our money, laundering of our money, where Congress and Senate, that are supposed to be looking out for our best interests, are some of the richest people in the world. Well, you struggle to survive, to keep your house, to keep your cars, to put food on the table. These people are living the lap of luxury because you pay for it with your tax dollars. So it's absolutely crazy. There's one thing that I want to talk about also. Now, obviously, it's no mistake that I voted for Donald Trump, and I like Donald Trump. But I don't know who's in charge of his campaign. But I get emails and text messages constantly asking me for money. If I want a new Make America Great Again hat, donate this amount of money and they will send me one. If I want to come to Mar-a-Lago for dinner, donate money and they will, put me in a running to win. Now, I'm happy that he's the president and that he's doing great things, but I don't know who's in charge of that, but they should not be asking people to donate money when so much money has been stolen from the American people. He has already been elected the president, so he doesn't need any more campaign funds right at the moment. So I don't know if it's a scam or what's going on, so maybe someone could tag Donald Trump and let him know, hey, These people are asking everyday regular citizens for money constantly. For what? I don't know. Why they're blowing up my phone with 5, 6, 7 emails and text messages a day asking me to donate money. I'm not going to. It's not going to happen. Until we have our money figured out in the United States and the taxes that they're stealing from us, I don't think anybody should donate to any type of federal government agency, program, or anything. That's just my take on it. Let me know what your thoughts are. And yeah, that's the video for today. I know it's crazy. Also, one other thing. Sorry, I forgot about it. We the Peasants podcast is going to be up and running. I've got it all registered with Spotify and around. You will be able to watch it and listen to it on Spotify here soon. You'll be able to see it on my YouTube channel and all of my social medias that allow it. There will be a website going up for Mr. Dadbot here soon. And the podcast link will be on the website. So you will be able to check all that out. You'll also be able to go to the website if you ever want me to come on your show or go do anything for you. You'll be able to find all of my info to get me to swing through there. So that's all coming up here soon. And yeah, this is my video for today. Look out for We the Peasants podcast. It's going to be coming up here soon. We're going to have some people on the show. We're going to be talking about stuff. There will be local people, and as well, there will be some famous people coming onto the show. So look out for that. And we'll see you on the next video. You guys have a good rest of your weekend.